Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of August 7, 2024. The City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. Community members are welcome to join either in person, remote via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate via Zoom in the future, you'll find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett website under City Council Department. Please note, we do not allow comments of any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. We ask that the audience refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing, and no signage of any kind are allowed in the chambers. We also ask that everyone take a seat and not gather in the entry area. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin. Here. Vice President Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely. Here. Councilmember Fossey. Here. Councilmember Toohey.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here. At this time, I'll ask Councilman Bader to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and at this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Fossey to read the land acknowledgement.
The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Shahobs people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes for July 31st, 2024?
Councilmember Bader so moves.
Seconded.
Okay, motion is second made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Well, good evening, Mayor.
Good evening. I apologize in advance because my comments are going to be a little lengthy tonight. The issue weighing most heavily on my heart right now is Proposition 1. I am sad and disappointed to see that voters decided against this ballot measure. Since my first day in office, the financial health of our city has been a top priority, and in early 2018, I issued a budget directive asking for cuts and efficiencies to address the inherited structural deficit due to Initiative 747. Over the past 6.5 years, we've done the work making cuts, streamlining operations, improving efficiencies, and pursuing other sources of revenue. We've implemented grant writers in several departments of the city, securing funding available to better the city, any funding available. We've made technological improvements that have helped our staff manage their increasing workloads and improved access to information for the public. But although that improves efficiency and access, it sadly cannot replace the hard work of our public servants. For the last 20-plus years, our city's primary revenue sources, property taxes, have been capped below inflation, causing a deficit. Everett is not alone in this. The state's 1% cap on property tax levy increases impacts nearly all taxing districts in our state. To overcome this, more than 60 other Washington cities rely and vote regularly on levy lid lifts like this to maintain funding for core services. Everett is unique and had never asked voters to approve a levy lid lift prior to this ballot measure. Additionally, many cities have regionalized services like fire or EMS or libraries, but Everett has not done that. I want to thank this council for recognizing how important it was to move a property cap lift forward and place it on the primary ballot. I supported our council in bringing Prop 1 to our voters because it was time we asked the community if they were willing to increase taxes to maintain core services. The outcome of this election reflects the democratic process we all hold dear, and while this is not the result I hoped for, I respect the voice of our community. This doesn't change my resolve or our council's resolve to continue working together to address Everett's long-term fiscal challenges. Moving forward, we face likely very painful decisions on where to make cuts and services to overcome a projected $12.6 million deficit next year and far greater deficits and significant growth of those in the following years. We have used the tool of voluntary separations in the past to offer an option for staff who are already considering leaving the city. Next week, we will be bringing forward an ordinance to council to implement a first round of this program for specific work groups. This requires negotiation, so we will need to act now to ensure it's in place to achieve the necessary savings to begin to address the deficit for 2025. As we move into the 2025 budget process, community input will be very important, so we'll be launching community outreach processes and hopefully a couple of town halls. We want to hear from you, so please keep your eyes out for these opportunities to weigh in on our budget priorities and look for more information coming soon. In other news, I have a short Sound Transit update to share. First, remember that light rail comes to Snohomish County on August 30th when Linwood and Mount Lake Terrace stations open for service. This is very exciting. We've been working on light rail for so many years, and it hasn't felt like it's ever going to get to Snohomish County. So there's going to be a grand opening at 10 a.m. And a great night market that evening on August 30th. For Everett service, it's starting to get very real. Express buses and Swift lines will now connect Everett riders directly to light rail stations in Linwood and Shoreline for quicker, more reliable regional connections. The Sounder North Line commuter rail will add 2 more daily trips this fall as well. Last week, our permitting, building, and transit teams began a new phase related to Sound Transit Everett Link Extension. They will begin doing detailed review of specific routing and station locations as Sound Transit works through the environmental review process. And remember, I am the Sound Transit Board Representative together with Executive Summers and Mayor Frizzell and Linwood. We are the only 3 voices for Snohomish County on a 19-member board. Last night, as you all are aware, was National Night Out, and I really want to thank all our volunteer groups that made it a huge success. It was great connecting with our neighborhoods, and it's a great reminder of why we do what we do to support our community members. And lastly, in June, the Mayor's Drug Crisis Task Force wrapped up their work and completed their report. They made 15 recommendations on the topics of crisis response, education and prevention, advocacy, and treatment, recovery, and services. And our Health and Human Services Council Committee heard an overview earlier this evening. Our team will be working on next steps for implementing the recommendations and our continued focus on the drug crisis. I want to especially thank co-chairs Jonathan Schwartz from Fortive and Donna Moulton from CEO of Housing Hope for serving as task force co-chairs. And I know Jonathan is here tonight, and I'd like to invite you forward to share a few words, if you would, reflections on your task force work. And again, thank you for your incredible work.
Red? Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and hello, council members. My name is Jonathan Schwartz, and I work at Fortive Corporation here in Everett, where we have over 1,000 employees. I also had the honor of serving as the co-chair of the Mayor's Drug Crisis Task Force with Donna Moulton. Unfortunately, Donna couldn't be here tonight, but I know she and I were both very thankful to have the opportunity to represent the community as co-chairs and engage in this work. I know that you've all received a copy of the full report. As a task force member, I feel really good about the report and the process and the hard work that went into creating it. On behalf of Donna and myself, I wanted to come before you tonight personally to express our full support of the report and to demonstrate our continuing commitment to these efforts. The task force created valuable opportunities to build connections and strengthen relationships across the community. I know for me personally, it gave me a deeper and much better sense and appreciation for the staff at the city, many of whom are here in the room tonight, and the hard work that they're doing every day to address this crisis in a compassionate and intentional way. Donna and I have a letter to present to Mayor Franklin. I believe you've each just received a copy of that letter. And that letter reiterates our gratitude for the work of the task force and our pledge to remain partners with the city of Everett going forward. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I really encourage everyone who wasn't a part of the Health and Human Services Committee just before this to watch that committee and to read the full report. And again, just want to thank Jonathan, Donna, and all of the volunteers, the task force, as well as the staff that worked so hard to create these recommendations. And with that, I have no further comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for public comment, which includes written comment acknowledgement. Under the rules, written comments shall be considered in the same manner as oral comments. The commenter must provide their name and city of residence. Written comments require this to be made in part of the official council record. Good evening, Angie. Do we have any public comments or written statements?
Good evening, President Schwab. We do not have public comment, but we have 2 written comments we received. One from Jeanette Revoir regarding Park District and Russell Joe regarding the comprehensive plan update. And they were provided to council, legal, city clerk, and administration to be part of the record.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to council comments and liaison reports. Councilmember Benzolingo.
Thank you, Council President. I guess the first comment would be the most recent thing in these chambers. A couple of hours ago, you and I greeted some visitors from our sister city of Iwakuni, Japan. Kind of a regular visit. I guess this happened last year as well. So a chance for us all to learn bi-directionally, and I'll leave to you any further comment on that. And you're talking to them. It was a great thing for us to keep doing, and I'm really happy to see that relationship continue over so many years. The only other element to comment on is a national night out, as described earlier. Actually, went to 3 different events yesterday evening, and they worked out pretty well in timing. I spent almost 4 hours at the 3 events, and had a very good and informative time. And that included an event at the Everett Mall. They hosted an event themselves, which is a kind of an unusual source for that, but it was a fun event and a good chance for me to talk at length with the manager of the Everett Mall, and talk a little about their vision for the improvement of that mall and the expansion of it. And that was all really great stuff to see, a positive thing on an otherwise kind of discouraging evening. And then one other thing that was encouraging, an event at a large condominium complex, a place that's under some pressure from drugs and some street crime and that sort of stuff, where a woman who'd previously organized the event in earlier years couldn't do so this year. And so her daughter took the initiative to take the reins this year and organize the event and make that whole thing happen. She gave great credit to her daughter, and I think I was really encouraged to see that, because these connections that the National Night Out fosters between elements of our community, to have the younger elements of our population see the value in that is a really, really encouraging thing. And also thanks to city staff for going above and beyond, getting personally involved, showing up at these places and helping our city to get better connected to its community members. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you, and good evening. Councilmember Zarlingo, I saw you at the condo party, and I don't think you saw me. But you brought up the story of the daughter, and I was going to talk about that. So I didn't write anything down, but I was really impressed. And I'm glad that you wrote it down and had it all well said, because I got there towards the end and had some great ice cream, and there wasn't a whole bunch of people, but then the fire truck showed up, or the fire engine. And everybody just came rushing back. And so community involvement is key, and it was really nice to see that at a few parks and different places for National Night Out. Earlier today, just before this meeting, I was at the Alliance for Housing Affordability, and that was a really great, informative, but also great discussion amongst all the cities involved. And I'm just going to read something that didn't come from, well, okay, I'm going to read something now. Snohomish County home sales have begun to rise in 2024, and this comes from June, just a couple months ago, following an overall decline in 2023. The price growth has not been equal across unit types, with townhomes not yet increasing beyond inflation-adjusted 2022 levels. Single-family homes and condominiums have both increased to the highest recorded median price in 24 years of data collection. Meanwhile, actual sales of these units declined to one of their lowest points in 2023. With the annualized 30-year fixed-rate mortgage rate of 0.682 as of June this year, an increase in some really small numbers. Interest rates have not played a significant role in the steadily increasing required income to be a homeowner in Snohomish County. Potential rate cuts in the fall of this year add uncertainty to what the second half of 2024 and early 2025 will look like. Let's see, it can be expected that a future rate cut will result in more rapid pace of Snohomish County home sales that may lead to increasing sale prices, even while required incomes may hold steady if interest rates are cut enough. If a small rate triggers a flurry of buying that raises prices significantly, required income may jump again. All this to say, Snohomish County remains in a feedback loop of rising required incomes and housing scarcity. That is somebody else's, well, it's Chris Collier's words that I get to quote about the, I'll just say it again, atrocity of how much it costs to purchase homes that aren't there. And it's not going to be easy for anyone here in the city, especially now that Prop 1 has failed. And I mentioned a few years ago about a top ramen budget. Yeah, well, I don't even know. I think we're all gonna have to share a bowl of top ramen because it's going to get bad. And I'm still going to be here with hope and mirth. But I'm also going to be here to listen to anyone that has anything to say. It's going to get real tough. And especially more so, let's see. And somebody, I think one of our city staff that was also at the AHA meeting mentioned affordable housing. Yes, we need it, but not only affordable housing, but obtainable housing. And I'm not sure if we all think about affordable being obtainable, and so I just wanted to put those two bits of information out there. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fosse.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to direct our council president to hire a third-party budget analyst / consultant to review expenditures and revenue options.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion been made and second. Is there comments or questions? I'll start with the motion maker.
I think we all know this is needed.
Okay. Councilmember Vogely.
Would you read it again, what your motion is? So I know it makes sense, I just need to hear it again.
No problem. It's to direct our council president to hire a third-party independent budget analyst / consultant to review expenditures and revenue options.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, I've been thinking about this kind of stuff the past 24 hours or so. One thing that occurs to me is the task we're going to face collectively in producing a balanced budget is especially difficult because we've got a responsibility to formulate and pass a budget that's going to have some painful, interacting, and potentially destructive trade-offs. And over the past few years, I've gotten some familiarity with our budget and a little bit of others, both present and historical. And I'm gradually appreciating more of that complexity. And I do appreciate the independent and useful perspective that would be brought by someone who's got more experience, both broader and deeper in time. But I do have a concern. It's not clear to me that there is somebody who's available, fully qualified and experienced, and able to hit the ground running, do it all quickly, and for a fee that makes this expenditure a positive. So I can see supporting this with those caveats, giving the freedom for us not to do it if it turns out that it can't be done in a time frame or with the expertise to give us what we need to do to make these decisions. So I guess I'd like to kind of add that as a qualifier to this, that we find an acceptable person quickly at an acceptable price with a turnaround that is acceptably fast, because we're going to need to settle on this pretty quickly.
Thank you. Mayor, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to speak to that. I think it's certainly always a good idea to have outside expertise, look at anything we're doing as a city. We've done a number of studies at multiple times throughout our history, and this is a great time to do it again. To your point, Council Vice President Sarlingo, we are in an incredibly tight timeline for budget development. We have to present a balanced budget by the end of the year. That means the public process happens throughout the November. I believe because of reductions being necessary, some type of public process as soon as possible to get some perspective. So I would see this as a really important tool for this council to take, but it may or may not be able to be implemented in time to impact decisions that you will likely have to make for this budget cycle. It's still useful because the structural deficit is here and it's not going away. And so hiring somebody, the procurement process usually takes a long time, and then the selection process, and just with that in mind, my guess is you won't be able to get somebody on board for at least 4 or 5 weeks or whatever that process would start. Hopefully they can do it in tandem with budget work, but again, maybe it would inform budget amendments early in the year, or some budget decisions that you may make, but likely not all. And so I just want, I thought government could move a lot faster than it does, and it really does move slowly because of some of the rules and regulations that we have to follow. But I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. Maybe I'll allow us to how maybe I'm a little jaded because we've done several, I think as the mayor pointed out, budget analysis and budget processes over the last decade or so. And I think at this point, to me, I mean, our constituents and the ideas they bring forth are the prime thing that would help inform me for this upcoming budget cycle. And as he pointed, as the mayor, and I think Council Vice President Zarlingo pointed out, the short time frame, I'm concerned about that. I really see I think it's our job to dive deep in the budget on this one. Maybe if this was something we were going to look at informing future budgets, because we will have that structural deficit, I'd be more inclined to support it. But I think at this point, given the time frame and the fact that we've had several of these in my time, and I think our constituents are going to be full of ideas, that's where I'm going to tap into. So thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Fossey.
So I'm glad to know that in your prior experience as a council member that you have actually had staff and expertise be able to provide you that kind of information. We are working with a very, very lean one-person staff person that supports us, and we actually have no direct legislative staff to help us reference, build policy, and we are strictly under the purview of the mayor. As a separate legislative body, I have been asking since I started here for a part-time consultant of some sort to be able to provide some sort of legislative advocacy, research, know what the other cities are doing, what other legislative bodies are passing, to have a budget analyst, because we all come from very diverse backgrounds, and this budget is very, very complicated. And sometimes having those outside consultant eyes to be able to look at things is very, very helpful for those of us that have questions and need a little bit more clarity on a dense endeavor to look at. So this is something that I hope that we have for ongoing. I'm not saying we need to hire a full-time staff person. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an outside consultant to help this legislative body to have a little bit of independence and understand this a little bit deeper.
Okay, thank you, Annie. Councilmember Vogely.
I'd like to start by saying the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. And we haven't actually had this type of consultant in this arena, I don't think ever, because I'm not sure, and I look through the budget every year, and a couple of you have been on council with me when I was looking through the budget very closely, and even still now, here we are, and it's not okay. So if we could get this consultant outside of administration, You have done a lot of work. I am not aiming any angst at anybody in this room except for maybe my colleagues. Because it's been a long time coming, and we need some outside help. And if we just buckle down and read the budget, that's not going to help us, because it hasn't in the past. So somebody from outside, thank you.
Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of the studies that they've done. I think that outside, just looking at the budget would be really important for council to be able to ask questions. But I also think that it's equally important to talk with our constituents and the neighborhoods. I mean, we need to do all of it, basically, to really make, and maybe some of the ideas that come out of a consultant is something that we do next year, year after. I mean, it is something that's ongoing, and that there's not one fix for any of it. It really needs to be strategically set over 5-10 years in order to rebuild the way we do business. So I don't think it's gonna hurt. I'd like to see what's available. We may not be able to find anybody for a while, but I think it's definitely worth looking at.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
I was waiting to be called.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Make it
Appreciate it.
official. Yes, everybody knows I've worked for several different jurisdictions, and the council always has their own independent staff person to help be the point person for all of the questions. You guys know I have more than enough to pepper staff with anyways, and just that independent eye on a situation can be helpful for budget amendments and just taking a look and having just a staff person with that analytical experience to really back us up. So I think it's a great idea. I would like to request that before it's approved, that like a job description, a length of time that we would be expecting them to be our consultant, parameters on how much would be spent on it, just some sort of guidelines before moving ahead that council could approve, I think would be really helpful, just so that we all know and are on the same page of what type of support we're looking for and what types of duties we would be expecting from that person.
Councilmember Zalingo.
Maybe a bit to square the circle here. I think we might do something useful in a couple of phases. A first early phase to see, basically an inquiry to see if we can find someone with the right expertise, availability for a more limited first look at things. Because what I'm looking for mostly is someone to, an independent look to help me focus, because the budget's a huge and complex thing with a lot of interactions. But my exposure to experts from other cities and in other contexts are that sometimes people who know this ground well can contribute a lot in terms of a clear initial focus. And so I'm thinking what would, in terms of the near-term work we can do, if we find someone who's available with the right qualifications in the right time for a first look at this stuff, that would help us then before the end of the year, at a time when we're also working on the comprehensive plan and there's some real heavy lifting to do there. And then if that works out well, that could guide what we do. So maybe for the more extensive stuff that Councilmember Ryan was talking about, we'd probably know more having had an initial exposure to this of what that kind of expertise could help us with. So I guess I'd like to offer a perspective. One way to handle this would be to do a first narrower, shorter shot at it, and then use that to inform a longer effort, as Mayor Franklin had talked about.
Councilmember Tui.
I just might suggest that Council President and Councilmember Fossey, and I don't know if a third council member could sit down and kind of work out some of the details of what we're looking for and parameters before you start looking, so that when you talk to people, you have that. But I think a small group could put some of that together.
Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you. I do know, and I think we all know, that PSA, if it's under the certain threshold, doesn't necessarily need to go out to bid, and it can then be amended and raised to what it needs to be. And I think that putting a scope of work together, there a lot of ideas are on Laserfish from previous contracts that have been put forward in the city of Everett. And so it can be a minimal amount of money first without a lengthy legal process of trying to gather the right people. We still need the right people, and hopefully they will come. But I do believe that we can get things started quickly for the lower than $50,000, let's say, legal capacity, and then amend it later if it needs to go up.
Great. Any other comments? Councilmember Ryan? No, I was just resting. Okay. Councilmember Thingol?
It seems like then a logical next step, if we choose to go forward with this, is to essentially direct you to call together a couple of people and then come back. And if it turns out that you come up with there's a readily available person or an idea, that we go forward with that, but that there is that we can revisit this if it turns out that it needs to be a longer term kind of a thing, that initial shot doesn't work.
I took lots of notes. Thank you. All right. And hearing no other hands there, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Vice President Zarlingo,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan. Yes. Councilmember Bader,
Abstain.
President Schwab.
Yes. Councilmember Vogely, did you have any more in your report? I mean Fosse, sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We went on for a long time. I guess I lost my pace there. Councilmember Tui?
Yeah, I know that Councilmember Ryan will probably speak to the drug crisis task force, but I wanted to just thank the staff, Chelsea and everybody that the mayor put together. It was very, very impressive body of work that they came back with, so it's really proud of that. So look forward to some really good things. Was able to attend a couple of the national night outs last night at Lowell and at the Preserve, and it was great to see so many people. It was really great, and I want to thank the police that stopped by and the staff that was also at Lowell. So it was a really beautiful evening. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan?
Great, thanks. Good evening, everybody. I also attended the couple national night out events last night. Congrats to Glacier View for throwing their inaugural event. It was well attended and a lot of fun, so congrats to them. I also want to thank staff for their support for all of the neighborhoods and to all of the neighborhood leaders and volunteers who worked to put the event on. I know some of my neighborhoods start planning in like January for the event, so there's a lot of work that goes into it. So from what I could tell, it's a big success. I know my kids had a blast and definitely had their fair share of ice cream, popcorn, face paint, and candy, so that was a fun evening for me. Let's see, yes, earlier, the Health and Human Services Committee, the mayor shared the bulk of the update about the Drug Crisis Task Force findings and recommendations, and I served as the liaison for the committee, and one of the things that I was most impacted by was the reminder that the opioid crisis intersects and touches every single department at our city, not just police and fire and first responders, but our libraries, our parks, our public works teams, and even our animal shelter. And just a good reminder too of how resource intensive the response is on both our city, on our city in both a fiscal sense and also an emotional labor sense. I've been thinking about this heavily, especially in light of Prop 1 failing and how the city is going to be even more resource scarce than ever to fulfill any of the recommendations that are in the task force recommendation list. But I know that we'll continue to look to the county, the state, and federal funding to help. I want to thank Mayor Franklin for putting the task force together and to the staff and co-chairs for their hard work to see it all through. I'm of course devastated by the news that Prop 1 not passing. It's a message from the voters that they believe that the city is capable of somehow making even more cuts. And in a way, I see this as that we are a victim of our own success. Over the past 3 years, we've had to cut about $30 million from our budget. We've streamlined services. We've done 2 rounds of layoffs with the 3rd on the way and consolidated services, but these cuts have all been invisible to the public. The city runs so lean we're anemic, and with the instructions from voters to keep cutting, it's excruciating to think where we're going to be able to find $12 million in savings this next year, 13 the year after that, and so on. And there's no doubt that these cuts will be visible. These cuts will cost jobs. These cuts will impact our quality of life. These cuts will mar our city's reputation. It's going to be a difficult budget season. There's no doubt about that. And I encourage all of my colleagues to actively participate in budget discussions so that the final budget is one that we can all make an honest vote on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. I also want to join in the thanks for the Drug Crisis Task Force Committee and all their hard work on that. Eager to look through everything they have there. Grateful for all they put together. National Night Out, I was actually helping out at Riverside last night. So it was a good night, those smaller crowd. And it seemed to me this year that we had a lot of smaller little parts of neighborhoods doing, which I think is really great. But it did seem to me that it seems like the number of actual neighborhood groups doing it has dropped. And so I wonder if our council of neighborhoods and others might do some thinking about why that is. I think it's a great thing to be bringing our neighbors out, but just wondering if participation, at least the neighborhood-based ones, is waning, and is it time for a rethink too to keep making this event fresh and successful? But grateful for all those who did help out, especially city staff for their support of that as well. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I had a different experience on National Night Out. I actually went to 5 different events, and they were all very crowded. I had too many ice cream bars, the good kind. So I really appreciate it. So I saw a lot more people than last year, and I really want to thank the mayor and her staff. They were overtime. There were staff at all of them, and I was at one of the events, and someone was asking me a parks question, and I go, "Oh, see that guy over there in the white shirt? That's our director, Bob Leonard. Why don't you go ask him the question?" So that was a pretty nice thing. So I just want to thank the mayor and her efforts and her staff efforts. So thank you very much. I had a couple requests from administration. If we could look at the light program at Madison Street and Beverly Lane, at least during the peak hours when our Google mappers are using our internal streets to find a way around the industrial parks to I-5. And I think you've seen the email. Then also, if you could examine signage where Harborview Park borders the railroad property. We've had some unfortunate recent death of one of our community persons. I appreciate that. Thank you for I took notes about the motion. I do think we'll come back because I think there's a lot of options. Is this a long-term type thing? What can we do in the short term? So I appreciate your comments on that. I also want to thank all of you, and especially the mayor's staff, for the heavy lifting that it came to Prop 1. That was not just a one-time thing. We spent a lot of time. You can go back and watch these council meetings, and we had a process where we had a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. I know our finance team is probably exhausted at this point. They put a lot of effort into it. And now it continues, right? We have a lot of heavy lifting. So I know a lot of this weight goes on the mayor's staff, and I really appreciate you. Because I know in your role, you're the driver. And there's just going to be a lot of heavy lifting. So I appreciate your efforts and your staff efforts going forward. And thank you for the comments. Our engagement as council members is probably hasn't required so much in a long time. So as Councilmember Ryan said, we have a lot of heavy lifting and difficult decisions to make. So thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to administrative update.
Sorry. I guess just in light of your motion tonight, I just wanted to remind council that I'm always happy to coordinate your questions and ensure that you're getting support and answers from staff. Timeline-wise, there's a number of state requirements and internal deadlines leading up to a significant one the very first week of September, so about a month from now. You'll have a revenue workshop on the budget on, I think it's September 23rd, whatever that Wednesday is. So that's another big date. It's a required date. So a lot of those choices around expenditures and revenues, at least as the staff is developing the draft budget, will basically be made at that point. And And then the last thing, and I didn't have time to write it down, so it'll be a little not totally artful, but I just wanted to, we talk a lot amongst staff about how we are one Everett. So we've got non-general government folks that weren't maybe touched as much by what was at stake with Proposition 1, but we're still all one team, one Everett. And that's true for the council, the mayor, and the staff as well. So to the community, you're the legislative body, but you're all part of the city, and we're all one, one team really trying to do the best for our community. I thought about that a lot in my old job, so that's sort of where my thoughts are with that conversation. But again, I'm here to support and help as needed, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a report from our assistant attorney, Hill Kamen?
No update and no executive session.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, before you, we have 7 consent items. Do I hear a motion to accept 1 through 7 on the consent items?
Councilmember Bader, so moves.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second's been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes?
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. All right, moving on, we have a proposed action item. Number 8, Council Bill 2407, second reading. Are there any questions? Oh, is it a third reading? Oh, I take it, so it's a,
No, the proposed is second.
okay, so item number 8, are we on the second reading? Okay, is there any questions from council? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to our action item. Item number 9, Council Bill 2407 -1414, third and final reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Water Main Replacement, Y, Phase 2, Fund 336, Program 042. Do I have a motion?
Move to pass.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion and second's been made. Are any questions? Clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes?
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes, so no further business. We're now adjourned.